when I was commissioned by the National Institution of Health to evaluate the effects of an experimental marijuana legalization policy in a small city, I knew I had to be clear and define the measure of my variables. Conceptually, my independent variable is the legalization policy itself, which I define as a governmental decision that removes criminal penalties for processing and using marijuana within the city limits. This represents the main change introduced into the community and is a factor I expect to influence drug use behaviors and like the future outcomes. My dependent variable is the level of drug use among residents, which I define as frequency and extent to which individuals consume marijuana or other controlled substances after the policy goes into effect. Because the goal is to determine whether the legalization leads to increased use, this variable must be measured carefully and consistently, since at the end of the day, this is a policy that could affect the future. To properly evaluate this concept, I also need an operational definition that outlines how I will measure each variable. I plan to operationalize the independent variable by coding the policy as a binary measure, where 0 represents the period before legalization and 1 represents the period after legalization. This is a nominal level of measurement because it separates the policy into categories without ranking them. For the dependent variable, I will then measure drug use through a combination of citywide surveys. Also look into effect of the hospital and treatment intakes records and possible police incident reports. Survey questions will ask residents how often they use marijuana or other drugs in the past 30 days, which also to me to record the response at the interval/ratio level because the number will represent meaningful quantities that can be compared. With the hospital and the treatment center data, it'll be counted as a ratio level variables since they reflect actual frequencies and include a true 0. While the police data, such as drug-related calls for service, will also be measured as a ratio level to capture changes in the community activity. By using multiple sources, I increase reliability and reduce the chances that result in influence by one type of data. I will track these measures over time, both before and after legalization, to see whether there is increases, decreases, or no meaningful differences between the drug use prior to or to the future. Through this approach, I can determine and demonstrate whether the policy truly affects community behavior or whether the fears surrounding legalization are unsupported by the evidence.